Hello everybody, it's Mrs. Pound, and this is the last video for our chapter 6.3 on light. So you know what that means. It means you can have everything you need to start studying for the test. So what we're going to talk about today is section 637, artificial light sources. Our objectives are going to be to compare the ways that artificial sources produce light and distinguish between efficient and inefficient light sources. So we know that there are natural luminous light sources that God created. Things like the sun, the stars, okay, those are natural sources. Even some animals produce their own light, like fireflies, right? So there are natural sources that God created. There are also artificial sources that people have created using the resource God has provided us. So the first type of artificial light source I want to talk about are incandescent light bulbs because they are the oldest. This is a light source that generates light by producing heat. And so an incandescent bulb, if you still have any of these in your house, these are the light bulbs that get really hot. It involves a tungsten wire called a filament that gets very hot and glows. So this wire here is made of a metal called tungsten, and it can get up to 3,000 degrees Celsius. That is really hot. And when you know that when things get hot, they start to glow. And so that's what produces the light. But a lot of heat is also produced. And so that is why if these bulbs have been on for any length of time, they feel very hot and you can burn yourself. Now, a lot of places like schools and office buildings and even homes now have fluorescent lights. This is a light source that produces light by flooding gas molecules with electrons under low pressure. So this is an example of a compact fluorescent light bulb that you might have at your house. And these are a lot more efficient. They use about 75% less energy and produce the same amount of light as an incandescent bulb. So they're much more efficient. The less heat a bulb produces, the more efficient it is. It has an inner phosphor coating that emits visible light when it absorbs ultraviolet light. So what happens is you produce electricity in this, and the electrons that are moving will produce UV light, and that light will hit the coating of these bulbs. That's why they have like a coating on them, and that produces visible light when that happens. Now, the latest kind of lighting we have are LEDs, light-emitting diodes. This is a form of artificial light that uses semiconductors to produce visible or infrared light. So these long things here, these are the diodes. They're made up of two different semiconducting materials, one at each end, and electricity will go through these and it will emit photons of light. It will produce light when that happens. And the key here is with a diode, the electricity can only go in one direction, so you would not be able to flip these around. Also, LEDs can come in many different colors, and what they'll do is there are different semiconductors that they will use. Depending on the semiconductor, you get different colors. And these are really efficient. They give off very little heat. So LED light bulbs are more efficient than incandescent light bulbs because a majority of the energy produced by LED light bulbs is transmitted into light. The majority of energy produced by incandescent light bulbs is wasted in the form of heat. Now, I want you to, if you are listening to this video, I want you to put a star next to the type of light bulb you think you have most in your house, whether it's incandescent, the fluorescent, or the LED light bulbs. I know in our house we have a combination of the fluorescent and the LEDs. We're moving more towards the LEDs. Now, with each of these types of light bulbs, the incandescent are the least expensive. The LEDs are the most expensive, But what you tend to find is that you save in energy efficiency. So the LEDs are the most energy efficient, and they also tend to last longer than the others. So even though you're paying more for the bulbs, you're saving a lot of energy, money, and you're saving money by buying fewer bulbs because you don't have to buy them as often. Now, there are other types of bulbs that are used. For example, there are sodium vapor lamps. These are what are commonly used as street lights, although I think there is some transition to other types like LEDs right now. But the street lights that give off kind of a yellowish color, those are sodium vapor lamps. There's also tungsten halogen lamps. These are very bright lamps that are commonly used for underwater photography and movie making, and they're actually made out of, they have a quartz coating around them and they have halogens, so they'd be more expensive, but when you need a really bright light, that's what you would use. And they work a lot like the incandescent light bulbs. Then there are neon lights. This is a light source that produces light by passing electrons through tubes of neon gas. And neon gas is usually kind of this reddish color. If you add different gases into it and have a mixture, you will get different colors of neon lights. And this works very similar to the fluorescent lights. It's a very similar technology, the way they work. So our objectives today were to compare the ways that artificial sources produce light and distinguish between efficient and inefficient light sources. Don't forget your 5 questions, and we are done with this chapter, so start preparing for your test.